a podcast shedding light on how healing is an inside job. Keys to your inner power and total transformation. Discussing wholeness, wellness, and the effects of the mind on the physical and energetic parts of our being. Sacred knowledge that inspires us to look within, to find our own unique path. Release and rewire to become what you truly are, strong, whole, and empowered.
Welcome to the Empowered Mind, Empowered Health podcast for the Conscious Game Changers with Dr. Jayne. Please like, share, and subscribe. Just be the wave. Today, we have Dr. Eldon Dahl. Eldon became a naturopathic doctor in 1988. He has been influenced by his mother, his own journey, and the book Life Extension. His focus has been on anti-aging and the immune system, connecting its decline to disease. He believes education is the key, returning the power of health back to the people. He has brought many great breakthrough therapeutic products to the table and is founder and CEO of Life Choice. Welcome, Dr. Dahl.
Thank you, Jayne. It's a pleasure to be on your program today.
So good to have you. Dr. Dahl, let's start with your story of, your mother and early times and even into early practice, because that's like so important to what you're doing today.
Sure, be my pleasure. I guess I would have to say that I've probably been in naturopathic medicine before I was born. My mother was on naturopathic prenatal formula and went to naturopathic doctors. And when I was raised to see both modalities of health. And I think for her at that time, she was quite ahead of her time. She was a pioneer. And she raised us to have an open mind. And I really appreciate that about her. I went my way and lived my life eating more holistically, and she believed in allowing the immune system to develop on its own, and all my siblings the same way. We've all been healthy and all the way through, and same with our children. And for me, the impact in my life changed life direction when I was 10 years old. And what happened to me at 10 is my cousin Linda, who was 10, she had died of cancer. And I attended her funeral. And as a young boy at 10 years old, her life and her death really affected my life, because I stood there and I look at her and I can see her like today, like Snow White. Long black hair, the skin just so, such a beautiful girl and full of life she had. And there she lied without life. And it hit me thinking, that could be me. That could be me. And it hit me in such a way that I started to look at things differently. I looked at the disease process differently. I started to look at people, what they look like, the skin color, their eye color, how they walked, see how much pain they had. Anytime somebody would start coughing, I would look at them. Here's a 10-year-old looking at people, expecting them and looking for signs of sickness. And then I started to reading the Britannica Encyclopedia Britannica. We had that set. So I started to read that and look at the disease conditions. And then I started to read clinical studies. When I was 10 to 12 years old, I was reading clinical studies on disease. And it just evolved into recognizing and looking at people and seeing the disease pattern form. And I developed that early on in life. And then I had a health store and a practice, and all the way through in my life, my mother was an influence, a guiding influence to support me in this cause. And I really admire, and I'm very grateful to have that type of an upbringing. And then I went back to school and graduated as a naturopathic doctor in 1988, and then started to seeing my patients. And what I found fascinating is everything I was trained to use in school was illegal. And yet my patient load were chronic. Back then, they didn't go to a naturopath because, that was your first line of defense. No, no, no. Naturopaths was something that people went to after they exhausted the medical route. And so they would come to see me, stage 4 cancer, full-blown AIDS, ALS, they come in wheelchairs, they come directly from the hospital, some, with only 2 weeks to live, being told to 2 weeks to live. And I tell the story of the one lady when she came in directly from the hospital. She came with intravenous in her arm. She had the drip. She had her daughter holding her other arm to guide her in. She had a turban wrapped around her head, and she sat down in my chair. She said, I wear this turban because I've had so many radiation treatments on my brain for the brain cancer that it's so thin that it could crack, my skull could crack. And I came directly from the hospital. I have 2 weeks to live, and you're my only hope. So you can imagine a young naturopath just graduated with the emphasis placed on prevention, on how to heal the body and prevent it from developing these diseases. But here they are, full of disease, and coming to me for saying, you're my last hope. But the one thing that I noticed when I looked at her is her face riddled with fear. I still get emotional because I still see it in my mind. This one patient really stuck out and stayed with me. And I as a man of faith, I looked up and I said, oh God, what can I do? And it came to me like it says, where there is breath, there is hope. That's what I said to her. And I says, I don't know what I can do for you at this stage, but I'll do everything in my power to help you. And so I did. I used to take my Vega machine and all my testing equipment to her apartment and started to treat her. And she started to feel better. Her hair was starting to grow, her fingernails would grow, and her attitude had changed. She was developing hope. The fear was gone, and she was happy. She was smiling when I'd come to see her. And of course, but 6 months, I think 6 or 9 months later, she passed away. And her daughter came to see me, and she brought me flowers and a bottle of wine. And she says, you gave us our mother back. She says, she died with dignity. She died without fear. And I'm so grateful for that. And so this is what I say, it is our mental attitude that brings about the change. If we believe, we can heal. If we believe in the sickness will overtake us. It all depends on our thought process. The mind is extremely powerful, and what we will, we receive. So what followed that is I started to see that I needed to treat my patients. They were so sickly. And so I had to make a decision, and it was a moral dilemma for me at that time. Do I follow the guidelines and treat them with medicines that I knew would not help their condition? Or do I branch out and treat my patients because that's what I went into this for, to make a difference in their lives. So I started to compound raw materials. I'd order them from different parts of the world, mainly from Europe. And I started to compound formulas for my patients' individual needs. And once I started to see the transformation and the change, how medicine that is actually formulated to be equal to pharmaceutical drugs by standard, but natural without the side effects. The results were amazing. And it wasn't too long before other naturopaths found out what I was doing and asked if they could get my formulas. And so I did. And in my early days, I was writing out what they were, putting it on with Scotch tape on these little yellow bottles. And that was how it started. And I started to roll out the products that we have today under the Life Choice brand is the ones that we had as practitioner-based product to doctors. And so I know that we have an alternative to allopathic medicine. I know if naturopathic medicine is formulated using the highest quality raw materials available, we can have therapeutic response equal to, if not better, than the pharmaceutical drugs without side effects. And I'm completely sure of that because I have seen it over my 34 years being in this industry.
Yeah, it's incredible. And a lot of products don't have that quality, do they? A lot of things that you buy.
No, the thing is, Health Canada, because in Canada everything is licensed, Health Canada does not care of the quality of the raw materials you put in your product because they believe that genetically modified organisms are safe. So the product can be radiated, it can be grown on sewage sludge. The amino acids are grown on sewage sludge. It could be that's what they are. I know it's gross to think about it, but that's what they are. They're chemically extracted instead of fermented. And they use feed grade material. So there's 3 grades of raw materials for medicines. So there's either the USP pharmaceutical grade, which has the highest standard, which pharma uses. There is the feed grade, which they use for supplementing our food, and food grade. So there's 3. One food grade for, putting folic acid in bread and fortifying foods, and then feed grade for the animals. And sadly, most of the supplements are produced using feed grade raw materials. And the ingredients that they use, the non-medicinal ingredients, you must look at those and how they're formulated. And we only have 2 choices. We have allopathic medicine or we have naturopathic medicine. That's all we have. And if you're going to be producing a naturopathic medicine, then make it equal to and make it so it's going to have a therapeutic effect. And so that's my philosophy from the beginning. With Health Canada didn't care the lowest standard to use, and they don't care about the highest standard either, which is a godsend.
Yeah, it's just, educating people on the differences. So this is really important. So
yeah, that's paramount, because the pathway that these raw materials take, that's what really changes the person, and how you formulate using other ingredients that help the main ingredient get delivered to the cells. It's critical. It's really critical, because people think that you just take one isolated vitamin and it's going to work in your body, and your body's just going to take it and use it and bring it to the cells. But these originally were meant to be food supplements, and the food supplement replicates food.
Mm-hmm.
And food is not delivered in one little thing, and then you have to figure all the pieces to make it fit. It's a complex in itself. The steak is full of amino acids. It's full of protein. And so you can't just say, oh, I'm going to give you this little bit and try to enjoy that. It don't work.
Right? We're complex beings. I love how you talk about how the mind is so influential, and that is so important for all of us to realize. Now, Dr. Dahl, you mentioned, let's just look at one supplement, melatonin, as being
Okay.
quite important, and then we'll go into, I love your thyroid care. But yeah, melatonin, can be quite health, it can have benefits in our health, but it depends on the type of melatonin as well.
Right. The thing is, melatonin is extremely important for our health and well-being, not only for serotonin release, but also that it actually, you have so much melatonin or serotonin within your gut. It's the second brain. So this is why it's so critical. And melatonin as a supplement in the States, I think it's number fifth largest selling supplement for adults, and I think fourth for children. I was at trade shows, and I would hear people say, well, they're going to reset the pineal gland by giving up to 60 to 100 milligrams of melatonin to children. And when I heard that, I said, who is this quack that's saying that? How can you do that? Especially the pathway that this one takes. See, there's various forms of melatonin. There's the chemical form, and there's the animal form. And the animal form could have unknown toxins in them. And the pineal gland is such a small gland to stimulate. It's our third eye. It's right here. And the pineal gland regulates so many things in our body, our hormone production, our serotonin production, our sleep-wake cycle, our weight, everything. And when melatonin is properly formulated, like we get our melatonin from Europe, and we pay about $1,200 a kilo for it. And we can buy Chinese material for $175 a kilo. But the difference is night and day. The Chinese material will give you side effects. And I found this out when we were giving out samples at one of the wellness shows in Ontario, handing out these samples of melatonin. And the panic look on some of these people's faces. I'd never seen this before. And I says, why you panic about melatonin? She says, I get nightmares. I clench my teeth. I have muscle spasms in my calves, and I have horrible, horrible nightmares. I says, you know what? It has nothing to do with melatonin. It's the sourcing of the melatonin that's causing you the side effects, not melatonin. Your body produces melatonin naturally from tryptophan. And then I said, they were still too afraid to try it because the horrible experiences they've had. And so we create this product that's actually backed by clinical studies. And Health Canada is showing, if you look up melatonin for cancer, and several naturopaths are using melatonin for cancer. Of course, you need to take about 30 milligrams a day for that, for therapeutic dosage. You take it about 8 o'clock at night, and you allow it to get into your system. And with the Melapure melatonin that we produce, it does not have the side effects like grogginess, or you do not get this. And it doesn't shut down your own serotonin production, which is critical, especially for children. And so we make a liquid one that is just perfect for taking for children or those in palliative care. 7 drops is 1 milligram. And 1 milligram is the amount that's needed for anti-aging as well. So no sleep, it's just strictly for anti-aging purposes before you sleep. 7 drops, 1 milligram for the pineal gland for anti-aging. Of course, that's what I take every night.
I love melatonin. I've always taken a top quality one, but this explains why some patients get such a severe reaction and won't take it. I've had the
Yeah,
same issue and then had to look
yeah,
for alternatives. But now I understand. Very good. And you say the gut is the second brain. Can you explain
right.
that?
Well, because our gut is the bedding ground where bacteria forms. And the bacteria that forms is either the good bacteria or the bad bacteria. And from this, it regulates our immune system. It regulates our endocrine system. It regulates our brain, and then the serotonin production within the brain, when it produces the brain, it's within the gut also. And because the gut is basically has all the immunity and the serotonin release and can regulate our immune cycle and our endocrine cycle, it is part of the brain structure that we have. And it's simplistic, and Hippocrates said over 2,000 years ago that all disease begins in the gut. And he's the father of modern medicine. And yet we never really studied the gut in that capacity till probably about 10, 15 years ago. So all these years we had his words of wisdom, and we never paid attention to it. Start at the gut. And so when I treat any patient, or if I give advice on disease process, the first place is treat the gut. Bring the bacterial content back to a balanced state. Then you start treating the body, because it all begins within the gut.
Right. And so many diseases we have are treated with antibiotics. And
Right.
then, and then we're not fixing the flora problem in the gut. You have an amazing
No.
probiotic, don't you, that really would help?
Yeah, our probiotic is really, really amazing. We formulated very special from a healthy gut bacteria. This is how we designed it. It's human strain. And the strains work within to regulate the gut bacterial flora. And what we recommend that anyone that's on antibiotics, that to take a probiotic at the same time. And the probiotic should be taking about 3 to 4 hours separate from the antibiotic, so it doesn't knock it out. And that way your healing crisis from the antibiotic doesn't bring down your whole immune system, but it keeps it healthy so you don't have to fight back later on. And the beauty about our probiotic is it has a prebiotic. And for those that are unaware, anytime you have a shelf-stable probiotic, it has to feed. It's a live bacteria. And the bacterial growth has to feed to stay alive for the duration of the shelf life. And it feeds off the prebiotic. Now, there are 2 prebiotics that are basically used in the marketplace. One is called FOS, and it's a big long name that I'm not going to tell you. And then the other one is Inulin. And they're both derived from chicory root. But the pathway that they take and how they're processed is different. Now, if you're taking the FOS, it has a tendency to feed not only the good bacteria, but the bad bacteria as well. When you take the Inulin, which is produced by fermentation, the FOS is produced by chemical extraction, and it's a different length of the fat process. It is healthier, and it only feeds the good bacteria, the Inulin. And most people are unaware of that. It costs more to produce, the raw materials is more, but you are eliminating the possibilities of side effects. And that's why the product works so well. And what we've also done is we blister packed it. And the reason I've done that is my studies over the years are by lipofuscin and what oxidation can do within our body, with the brain and everything else that goes along with that. And I realized that if you're going to produce something that has a live bacteria, that you must preserve it so it's not exposed to oxygen. And so we blister pack it so you only have that one capsule coming out that gets oxidized until you take it. Whereas when you have a probiotic that needs to be refrigerated, or one that does not have a proper prebiotic in there, it oxidizes immediately. And if it's not blister packed, it starts to get oxidation. So that's why we took the extra step for the blister pack. Because every stage when you're designing medicines has to be thought out. Because as I say, we have two choices. And if you're going to produce one that's a natural, you have to go all the way.
Right. And if you're going to buy any natural medicine, it should be a good quality one that actually works. So this is really important.
I'll tell you how this is when I formulate. This is quite different than most other suppliers. Most suppliers, when they formulate a product, they capture and look at where this is going to fit in the marketplace. So they formulate based on price to enter the marketplace, because it's real estate, right? When you're selling product on the shelf, it's real estate. And if you come in with too high of a product, price-wise, it won't sell. When I formulate, I look at what I want to achieve. I look at if I'm going to produce a product, say a probiotic, what is the best ingredients that I can find? And all our formulas, like our neurotransmitter support for the brain, I have to source from, I think, 5 different branded material, plus all the others, and there's 21 ingredients. It's one of the hardest products I have to source. But I do that because when you put that together, it changes the brain. And it opens up the synapses of the brain. And so this is the difference in sourcing and formulating. And so when I finish that, then I determine what the price is, and that's what we sell it for, using the highest grade raw materials. I don't do the opposite way.
Yeah. This product you're talking about, Neurotransmitter, is incredible too. And I listened to someone that he was having trouble with memory, and it helped him so much. Just tell us quickly about that.
Well, that's quite a story in the background on that one. I don't know if we have time for that, but how it came
works,
about.
Yeah. Just how it works and what it helps with is.
Okay. Well, what it helps with it's the neural pathway, and so it helps to open up the synapses of the brain to allow oxygenation to be brought to the brain and to open up the blood supply. And so the neurons can fire properly. And I use some of these ingredients for my MS patients. And when I formulated this latest one, I had the one person that had some great results with it was a Hollywood actor, Nick Mancuso. And I met him, and I approached him and asked him how well had a vision of him actually the night before. And I was asked, I was supposed to ask him how much you want to be well. And I never met him, never seen him before. So I went up to Nick. I'm Eldon Dahl. I'm a naturopath, and I'm supposed to ask you this question: how much do you want to be well? And he says about 50%, because he didn't care. He was full of toxins and poisons, and he had every disease going on. And so I said, I can help him. And then his memory was gone. He wasn't acting anymore. He's done over 300 movies. And then I got him onto the neurotransmitter support. And in a matter of weeks, his memory started to come back. And now he's doing one-man plays, and he's back to full acting, and he attributes it all to the neurotransmitter support. So it's incredible when a product works to that capacity, and it's very humbling to see such a change in someone's life by bringing them the nutrients that they need. Their body's crying out for it. That's the thing. Their body is crying out for these nutrients, that they're looking for them. And when you give the nutrients into the body, the receptor sites of the body take those natural medicine and absorb it, and the healing begins. And like I always say, there's not a person or a product that brings healing to a person. all we can do is to bring the body to a state where of balance, and then the body will heal itself.
Yeah. And to empower people with this information. I know it's a wonderful mission of yours. And you have a book that we're going to discuss near the end. But first, the thyroid. There's a bit of an epidemic today in itself.
Oh, yeah.
And I think your information would be really important to share.
Yeah, thyroid health to me, I took a conference probably 22 years ago in Monaco, the first anti-aging conference in the world by some of the leading minds. And one of the speakers was talking about thyroid disease. And he specialized, he's from New York, doctor. And he was saying at that time that 70% of the population were thyroid deficient. I never heard that numbers before. That's massive. And so after that, I really started to take it on to look and discover the thyroid. And so I knew the thyroid gland was the way to go because I used to use glandulars in my practice, glandular therapy. But in Canada, it was illegal because all thyroid is by prescription drugs in the world, whether it has a hormone or not. So I approached Health Canada. I said I wanted to have a hormone-free thyroid gland. And they said it's impossible because everything out there has chemical residue within the product, and there's damage done to the tissue by the extraction process of the hormones. And if you want to do that, you're going to have to go through us under our standards. You're going to have to submit all the evidence to us. You're going to have to take a full gland with all the hormones, and under our guidance, extract the hormones from it and leave the gland intact. And there could be no chemical additives, and it has to be tested under our standards. That was a 4-year process for me.
Wow.
I took the challenge on. I fought Health Canada. And at the end, they said, you satisfied our requirements. Now you have to convince the drug council. Now, the drug council is a big, like, round table of all the drug companies, and it basically has to mesh with the world drugs. And it's a very hard body to go into and to talk to. And so the first approach was cancel. They eliminated, they said no. We made a second approach going directly to the Director General himself within Health Canada first. And when they approached it, they allowed it to be the first hormone-free thyroid gland in the world that's regulated by a governing body, and that's what we produced. And it's mind-boggling. It's so amazing. And when I first approached our raw material supplier, I says, I want to have a hormone-free thyroid gland. He says, why, Eldon? He says, the money is in the hormones. I said, yeah, but the healing is in the tissue.
And why is that?
Well, because the tissue has all the amino acid profile. It has all the polypeptide enzymes within there that resonate. When you take that inside your body, it resonates to the receptor sites within our system. Well, our system has these receptor sites, and our body, our endocrine gland, have the receptor sites. Our thyroid has the receptor sites. And so when you, this is what I say, when you take a synthetic drug to treat the thyroid, an isolated synthetic drug like Synthroid, let's say. Now, Synthroid is you take an isolated synthetic drug, you drop it into the thyroid gland, and the thyroid gland works with the endocrine system. So it must work with the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the pituitary, yeah, I said that, and the adrenal gland, and your sex hormones, your ovaries and testes. It all works in a state of balance, and it all communicates. There's a big communication pathway going on. I have this explained in my book. But what happens is that when you take an isolate It's chemically extracted, and it's synthetic, and it's a T4, and it must go into the body and then convert to a T3 to get absorbed. And then you have to realize that the thyroid deficiency is also related to your adrenals, because your adrenals are in a state of fatigue, either if you're hyper or hypothyroidism. Your adrenals are in a state of fatigue. Your adrenals are the largest source of vitamin C in your body. So your immunity is depleted, and your adrenals need to support your thyroid to produce thyroxine. And so when you take an isolate, it gives you a little bump, and it gives you a little rate, but you never recover. But you stay on the medication for the rest of your life. It's one of the top selling thyroid gland. Synthroid is the top selling medication in the United States. They sold 126 million prescriptions for the last 5 years. That's equivalent to one bottle for 1/3 of the US population. And because they're on it for the rest of their life, the numbers keep going and going and going up. So this product, what we created, can balance the thyroid gland without hormones, because it works with the thyroid gland and it fits the endocrine glands. So it works with the supporting endocrine glands to communicate. And as I said before, your receptors are at the state where they are seeking the nutrients they're lacking. It's just like someone that's in the desert and they're needing water. You give it the water, you don't have to tell the water where to go. The body knows how to use it when it's brought in. And the same thing is when you bring in the natural occurring hormones, the polypeptides, enzymes of them work within our body, resonate at a frequency within our thyroid gland to balance our thyroid and our entire body. And so we have two. We have thyroidine, thyroid gland with iodine. The reason for this is for both hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism. And a lot of people, I know a lot of people that have their thyroid removed, and they've had it removed surgically. And this is a crying shame. I have some of the statistics on that there's over 30% of the women, 30 years plus, will have a thyroid nodule. I think this is very important to discuss. And 95% of the thyroid nodules are non-cancerous, but they're taken out anyways, and they're radiated anyways. And in my book, you'll see the charts that I show that thyroid cancer death has flatlined for over 40 years. And I talk about the 40-year disease crisis. The 40 years disease crisis, that we created something 40 years ago that wasn't on the earth. We created something that has changed our entire DNA and our structure of our body. And from that point on, all diseases, cancer, thyroid or disorders, Alzheimer's, ALS, MS, skyrocketed from the last 40 years, 40 plus years. And so this is where it's critical. So this product that has the thyroid with the iodine is for those that had their thyroid gland removed, and they still have iodine receptor sites throughout their body. And so this one will take it in and it will stimulate the iodine receptor sites in the body to bring balance to the thyroid gland, even though it's been extracted. It helps those, and for hyper. And then we have one that we just released 2 weeks ago called Thyromoto. And it's a good name. And this is for autoimmune disorders. And there's no iodine because iodine can't be taken with those that have autoimmune disorders, such as Hashimoto's disease, which is one of the most prevalent thyroid disorders in the world. And it affects women 5 to 8 times more than men. So it's basically attacks the woman's body more than men, basically because women have the menstrual cycles and their body comes into a change every month. And this is why when you give a thyroid medication to women, it does not really change their hormone structure, because their hormones are changing sometimes on a daily basis, several times in a day, especially during their cycle. And this is extremely important to know. And the side effects, so people know, is when you're thyroid deficient, you're fatigued, cold extremities. Your periods could be very harsh and painful. And the opposite effect are hyper. So those that are hyper will be the opposite effect. So they'll be just on edge because their adrenal glands are just pushing out adrenaline and their stress hormones, and they're just wired. And everything, they have scant periods. They are cold, and they're very hot, and everything is on the opposite of the hypothyroidism. And so the Thyromoto is very beneficial, and the ingredients, the non-medicinal ingredients in both formulas, are to support and bring it to the cells. And we put in iron in ours, in the Thyromoto, because there's 30% of the world's population are iron deficient. And mainly all ones with Hashimoto's disease are iron deficient, anemia. And so we put a non-binding one with selenium, yeast-free, and zinc. So we know that zinc and selenium work with the thyroid, and the iron helps with the anemia. So it's just so wonderful when people phone and say, "Wow, that product's the bomb. I feel so great."
Right? Because you're fixing the whole person. Like,
yeah,
it's like fixing the axis and working with everything together.
Yeah, it's so important to treat the body holistically.
Yeah. So iodine, a lot of people are deficient in iodine as well, but you were saying Hashimoto's, you should not take iodine. So just maybe talk about iodine for.
Well, iodine, even in the diet, like America and Japan, where they have high amounts of iodine, they still have iodine deficiencies, because iodine alone isn't effective. And there's several studies that show that, and I bring that out in the book, that iodine is very good. And iodine, what we maybe we'll recall when Fukushima went, and when Fukushima went, then everybody had iodine deficiencies, because radiation is treated and protected the thyroid with iodine. So the thyroid needs iodine to function. But those that have an autoimmune disorder have plenty of iodine within their body, and they can't take any more. So you don't supplement additional iodine for the thyroid. Iodine, on the other hand, when it's in a complex or it's in a form, so our thyroid gland, how it was produced, it has naturally occurring iodine within the gland. We preserve that in the process. So it's in a complex with the amino acids, within the profile, with the polypeptide enzymes in there with the iodine, so it gets absorbed properly to the cells.
I see. That's brilliant.
Well, iodine is
yeah.
is incredible. We need it in our bodies. It's the trace mineral we need. But when we see all the environmental toxins in the world, and Fukushima, and even the other outbreaks, I think I did a newsletter of how many nuclear bombs that have been let off since then too. So many, and they all bring out the radiation, and it's still around the world. It just doesn't go away because it doesn't say it on the news. It's still with us. So iodine is extremely important to have in our body, but it has to be the proper way, just like we explained about the melatonin. It has to be produced in a way that the body will receive it without having to look for ways of how I can break it down to get it to the cells. This is extremely important to know, that if you're taking something, that the body has to find the enzymes to be able to break it down to a form that the body can absorb, you're defeating yourself because enzymes are already in a low supply within the body, just to begin with. So you don't want to start taking something like a folic acid, or you don't want to start taking like an amino acid that's chemically extracted, and you bring it into the body and it needs to look for these nutrients. And like tryptophan is a good thing for serotonin release. So we have tryptophan. And when we produced our tryptophan, which is important, is if you don't have B6 in your bloodstream, the tryptophan cannot cross the blood-brain barrier for the brain. So there's your serotonin release is blocked. So when we realized Health Canada and all their wisdom and magic, they, instead of giving us 500 milligrams per capsule, they limited it to 200 milligrams. So what we were forced to do is to use our common sense, those that are formulating. And so we realized that for therapeutic dosages, say for MS or chronic diseases, you will need to take up to 1,000 milligrams. But you can't put B6, pyridoxine, in there at that amount because you can have neuropathy in your fingers. You'll get tingling and you will get joint pains, and it'll be actually bad for you at higher amounts. So we put P5P, pyridoxal 5-phosphate, in there, which is safe enough for an infant to use, and you can take it at high amounts. So this way, when you take the tryptophan, you have the B6 there, so the body doesn't have to go look for that to absorb it, and it gets absorbed directly over right into the bloodstream, into the brain there.
Right, so important. It's incredible information.
Well, thank you. But it's just understanding the human body, understanding the science, how we are designed, and creating products according to our design. We're gonna come up with some animal products now, and so I'm gonna be studying on how these supplements will work within animals, because it's different. I can't just say, well, just because it works in a human, it's going to work with an animal.
Yeah.
So we have to think differently. We have to realize where the environment that these products are going into, and how it's going to be absorbed. And that's basically, well, that's how we work. That's why we got into so much trouble with the food that we started to eat over the years.
Right.
Because we're not designed to eat that stuff.
Oh, you mean when we're eating things that just are processed and junk food?
Fully processed and all hydrogenated fats and genetically modified organisms. And well, so what do you think? You just throw it in there and see what happens, and the body's going to just say, oh, gee, that's a little challenging, but I can make it work. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So the closer you can get to natural food, the better. And then really high quality supplements, because even our food doesn't have the nutrition that it used to have.
Oh, no. The soil is depleted.
Yeah.
The soil is depleted. We're importing a lot of our food. And a lot of our products are coming in from greenhouses now, and God knows how they're growing it. And genetically modified, we could have a whole program on GMOs. That's a nightmare.
Yeah, we should. Let's do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I really wanted to touch on your book that's coming out, because it's going to be quite informative and straight to the point.
Yeah, I've wrestled with the title, so I called it Natural Medicine for a Sick World. And I was going to call it For the Sickness World, but then I thought, no, it's sick. Our earth is sick. We are sick as a species. And we really need to come back to nature on so many ways. And the process to healing. The process to healing is the opposite to how we develop the disease. And so what we have to do is we have to consider the tiara of how our body is. And so we recognize that the disease pattern, when we're treating it like allopathic way, we're only treating the symptom. We never go to the core issue of the disease. And there's no money in healing everybody. Sadly, that's just what it is. There's no money in a healthy nation. Now, the lobby groups for the pharma, they are 1,000 times over what the natural do. So they influence pharma. So in this book, I go into my upbringing and my background, and go into how I used to treat my patients, and go into all the disease processes, cancer, ALS, go into all the different structures, thyroid disorders, and we go into the immune system, how the immune system develops, and my experience on how I was raised. And some people may find it quite comical how my mother raised us, but it was good. And I bring these experiences out on what to do, how to treat the body, how to recognize the condition, and how to treat that condition from a holistic point of view, and all the way from mental illness, physical illness, to spiritual illness, because we're triune beings, and we must approach everything on a triune nature. And the amount that our will, and I can't, the brain, and I think this is where we really need to place a lot of focus, is on the brain and the thought process. And when we take products, we must visualize that they're working. And it might sound like a cliche, you have to believe in positive thinking and all that. Well, it's not that simple. You just say, I'm going to think positive and everything's going to be all great. It doesn't work that way. Our minds become programmed, and we need to reprogram our minds for the proper thought, the proper energy, the proper flow, and to believe in what we're doing. Because if you believe the opposite and follow that pattern, you will never have true healing. You need to see yourself, first of all, visualize your healing. You need to. It's easy enough to visualize your sickness when you're sick. So you got that covered. Now change that and visualize your healing. And you need to have hope. You need to not be so hard on yourself. You need to give yourself the leeway and say, I'm going to be better. I'm going to improve my life. And then you make that start. And you change your mental focus. Your mental focus on wellness, not sickness. And that changes everything.
Yeah.
Because the right mental attitude will bring about every change.
Yeah. I love how you say we're programmed, and like from 0 to 7, we take on other people's beliefs as if they were our own. And we're even taught to give away our power to authorities and health authorities, when we actually are capable of doing so much ourselves.
Exactly. As soon as, because it takes work. It takes work. When you come in, say you come in to see your doctor, and he says, well, you got cancer. So then right away you take that on. I'm going to die. And you start believing that. And you program yourself to believe that. And your system, then you say, well, I can't deal with this. It's too big for me. I can't deal with this. Here, you take it. And so they give their full authority, their full power into this doctor's hands. You take care of me. That's your job. And they abandon themselves. Okay, he'll take care of me. He's the doctor. What is he's trained to do this? And you don't have any responsibility but what they say. So they say, well, we got an experimental drug. Well, if you recommend that, then I'll take it. Well, we recommend you do 5 rounds of chemo and then radiation. Well, if you recommend that, and they do, it happens every day. And in my book, I talk about chemotherapy. And it's not that good for you, I tell you that. Yeah, there's a lot of science that will show you that it's not. And I have everything's referenced, so it's just not me talking out of my hat. It's full of references. I don't say nothing without a clinical study or reference in my book. So the information is there. It's just we have to look for it. So this is the thing. We need to take back our power on so many levels. So many levels.
Yeah.
And we can.
Yeah. And it can, it does take effort, like you said. It's not easy to go back and look at some of the pain and some of the things that made us feel like we weren't enough or not good enough or we're alone. All those things, take work in order to heal and are part of the process.
Oh yeah. When I was, I think I probably was about 25. And I listened to a series from John Bradshaw. He's a psychologist on the focus on the family. And when I read that and seeing his tapes, I thought, wow, what are my thoughts? I am who I am, but where do these thoughts come from? My belief, is that my belief or is that my mother's? Or if my outlook on life, is that my dad's or my brother's or whoever else? So I started to spend the next 4 or 5 years just stripping everything out. No, that's not my thought. That's not my thought. No, I don't believe that. And started to go into psychology a lot, and I really studied that extensively on human development and what we receive and what we believe. But then because what we believe, then we actually become. And so this is where you'll see patterns of generations, and you'll see even in the disease process, genetics, because of the lifestyle of the culture. You'll see that. I used to take my Vega training and testing when I used to travel, and I would test people, and I'd see that the culture had certain disease patterns within it. Gut bacteria, liver in certain cultures, and so this is how it is that we take on these things and we carry them on, because if you don't deal with it, you carry it on and you pass it on to your children and their children and their children, because you don't deal with it and you just accept it as your own, but it's not your own. Now, I like Bradshaw. He says this one thing: they live their whole life as a bulb without becoming the flower.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that the potential we have within us is limitless.
Yeah.
If we could use the brain in the capacity it was meant for, we could change the world. And it's just not a metaphor. I mean, we could change the literal world. What we don't like in this world, collectively, coming together with that mindset, we could change the world. Who knows what we could do? Transport, we can do, heal ourselves with a thought. Yeah. I think we have potential that we haven't even begun to tap into. And the human brain is just, no computer can match the ability of the human brain. But we don't use it to the capacity. We give our power away, and we just carry on and carry this baggage. We just have these big huge bags, and we're pulling it day by day. And if you look behind you, you got this 150-pound load you're carrying. Is that yours? Well, I don't know where it's from, but I'm claiming it. Let it go. It takes work. It does take work. It takes a lot of work to strip away these thoughts and the negativity and the hatred and the racism, and everything stems from, is it your thought? So you have to ask yourself, is it your thought? And if it's not, let it go.
Yeah. I was thinking when you talked about the bulb, I could see the blooming, and they call it the awakening, but for
Right.
the light bulb going off, that we are more powerful than we could ever imagine is what is happening. And so many are becoming aware.
There's a great awareness happening today. I think you can suppress people for so long. You can tell them, you can lie to them for so long. You can push your agenda for so long. And there is a breaking point. And then when the people see beyond the veil, when they see that, hey, like the Wizard of Oz, don't look behind the screen. Listen to the fear campaign here. Listen to that. Don't look over there at the one pulling the strings.
Yeah.
So look at me. Fear, control.
Yeah.
When you look at the liberty, freedom, spiritual awakening, the power that's within each of us, but it's suppressed. It's suppressed. It's held back. It's like that bulb. And all you need to do is bring it into the light. The light will bring forth the right nutrient, the right amount of heat and energy to bring it forth the light. The will bring forth life. And we're all the bulbs.
Yeah.
And we are, I think as a people, we are ready to blossom. And it's going to be a great thing to see the unification of healthy, strong people with their own power rise up.
Exactly. And I love what you're doing. You reminded me of a time in my life when I was taking ballroom dancing, and I had a teacher that was very controlling, and he didn't want to lose his students, but we knew that there was another whole world. And one day we looked beyond the veil of, because he was keeping us very controlled and in his own little world. And it was so interesting. It was just like that. It was like we could see a whole new world. Like we went to another coach, and it was like we looked behind the curtain, and it opened like a whole new world of our future in dance. But it's been like that so many times in my life, and you can't go back. Once you know, there's no going back.
No, but once your eyes are open, once your eyes, it's like the Matrix, the blue pill, red pill.
Yeah.
Once you see, how can you go back?
Yeah. There's no going back.
No.
And you realize that everything has to come from within.
Yeah, it does.
You can get help, of course, and information and all kinds of information and help to heal the body. But like you say, you have to imagine it doing the work that it's doing as well. And believe it.
We have to visualize all things in a positive way to get positive results. That's, as I say, we become so dumbed down. We've been brainwashed. I mean, people rush home and just stare at the TV and all that coming into them. They don't realize how much is pre-programming their mind to believe the narrative that they want you to believe. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's reality. I mean, we know that. You can train anyone to believe one pathway or another pathway. We do that all the time with our children when they were raising them. And so I just think it's time we take back our power.
Yeah.
That's all. Just take back our power. It's yours. It's everyone's. It's ours.
Yeah.
Take it back and use it, and you will be empowered. And what happens is when you're in that frame of mind, when you're in that form of energy, you attract those of like-mindedness. They come to you. Just like the negative attract the negative, the positive will attract the positive, and the energy, they will pour to you, and you will pour to them. You'll identify, like I identify with you on your program, because we're a kindred spirit.
Yeah, it's so true. And once you open the door, all you have to do is open the door, and then you can see the next step, the next step, the next step.
Yep.
And these things happen.
Yep. You don't have to see the how do I get to the end.
No.
You'll get to the end, one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Dr. Dahl. And do you have any nuggets that you would like to leave with our listeners today of, last information that you'd like to leave with us?
Well, I do produce a newsletter every 2 weeks. And so that you can register for that on our website. That's lifechoice.net. I do produce small videos on each of the products that we make. And it's Life Choice YouTube channel. And I can send you the links, and you can put them in here. And I try to talk very basically on what the products can do for the individual so they can see the expectations beforehand. And I just think really to tell in closing is, the power we have is in our own two hands. We have to remember that. That's where the power rests. It's not with others, it's within yourself. And from that point of having that power, you can take that pathway and do anything you want. Anything you want. So reclaim your health. Reclaim your mental health, your physical health, all things, your family structure. Everything is within your own two hands. That's holistic. That's what we are. We're triune beings. Never forget that we're body, soul, and spirit. Don't forget the spirit aspect, because it is who we are. It gives us our energy. And don't forget our soul, because that is the nature of who we are. It's our conscience, our moral conscience. So together, collectively, as triune beings, we can rise above every situation and to be empowered and to empower others, especially at a time like today, when it's full of fear. That fear will vanish quite quickly in a state of power. And when you believe in confidence, that just goes. That can't stand.
Yeah.
That can't stand against an empowered individual that knows themselves. No way. Darkness goes.
And with good information, the fears just evaporates.
It's gone.
Go look for the information. Build your own healthy immune system.
Yep.
And
be empowered.
Yeah.
It's an exciting journey. So don't think of it as a big task. Think of it as a challenge in yourself. Challenge yourself, and you should challenge yourself every day, even before your feet touch the floor, right from your bed when you wake up. Challenge yourself. Today, I'm going to accomplish this. Don't set out to climb Mount Everest the first day. No, but just make plans for what you want to accomplish, and you'll just see. I've done it my entire life, so it's not something I'm saying that I read in a book and go try it. No, I know it works, and I know a lot of people that I associate with the same feelings and same aspirations and the same way they look at life. Look at your motivational people that are out there. Your Anthony Robbins, your Zig Ziglar, all these people, they're not just they believe this. You know, it's true though. It's out there. There's a lot of knowledge to help you on your pathway. It's just that we need to seek that right knowledge and to let the other stuff that's binding us down, let it go. So I know it's not really completely our conversation on the natural medicine, but really natural medicine in its holistic state encompasses everything, the whole body.
Yeah.
And so that's my approach, is to take everything in that state. And that's how we produce our products. That's how we live our life. And that's how our whole operation works, is in that capacity. Everyone that works for me is the same mindset. And the energy is there. Yeah, I deposit it even into the pills.
And that's why you've created such beautiful products, is because of this belief.
Well, I just, this is my calling. I was meant to be here to do what I'm doing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Dahl. And I will definitely include those links so people can find you and get the newsletter and look in at, you can go and read and look at the products that you have for offer. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Jayne. It's a pleasure.
And for everyone out there, like you just so beautifully said, don't give away your power to anyone else. Just go be you.
Bless you.